So let's do Harriet, which is a film, a real-life story of a slave turned famous abolitionist who became part of the Underground Railroad, born into slavery, then escaped to Philadelphia, where she became a figure of legend, helping to transport a large number, I think it's 70 people, more than 70 people, over 13 missions, into safekeeping. It's an extraordinary story, which they have been talking about making into a film for quite a long time. I confess that I only know the story. I only know of the story because of the fact that people have been trying to tell it on film, which is an interesting thing. But one of the things that film can do is, raise bits of history that about, which had not been spoken about as much as perhaps they should have been. So it is co-written and directed by Casey Lemons, whose CV includes Eve's Bio and Talk to Me and Black Nativity. So Cynthia Erivo stars as Minty. We first meet her. That's the name that she's been given, a slave name. She then takes on a new name after escaping and leading a ragtag group to safety in Philadelphia, where she meets William Still, played by Leslie Odom Jr., who can't quite figure out how she's managed to get there.
So where are the others?
Well, no others.
But you can trust me. I'm a friend. Who'd you make the journey with?
I left my husband and family. It was just me and the Lord.
Well, I don't know if you know how extraordinary this is, but by some miraculous means, you have made it 100 miles to freedom, all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom? Most ex-slaves do. Any name you want.
They call my mama Rick, but her name Harriet. I want my mama name and my husband. Harriet Tubman.
So she then becomes somebody, having made that journey on her own. Sorry, I was getting my chronology of the film messed up. She then decides that she is going to go back and get, well, first she's looking for her family, but she then becomes somebody becomes her mission. There was a while, I think, when Viola Davis was talking about being in a version of the film. And I know that as I said, that people have talked about doing the story for a long time. You can see why. It is an astonishing story, and a story which actually extends beyond the boundaries of the film itself. It's a real story of bravery and courage, and it's an extraordinary thing. And I think it's great that it's being retold and brought to a whole new audience. And I have to say that what Casey Lemons and Gregory Allen Howard as the co-writer do is they do a very good job of getting a large amount of fairly complicated information and compacting it into a feature-length narrative that becomes, despite it's a really serious subject, but it becomes a really rip-roaring adventure. It's shot by John Toll, who does you remember with Sean Bobbitt when he was shooting 12 Years a Slave, did that brilliant thing of getting the beauty of the landscape, which is then juxtaposed against the horror of the subject matter. And I think you get some of that in Harriet. I also like the fact that in 12 Years a Slave, that song is a very key part. And in this, song is also a very key part, which is interesting because obviously historically it's true. But it's also profoundly dramatic because song is used to communicate information under the radar. Sometimes we see a character who's hiding somewhere who starts singing, and their singing is heard, but it's not heard by the slave owners because they just hear it as song. And I think that works really, really well. I think that it has a central performance that carries the drama absolutely shoulder high. It's gripping and realistic, but it also has this kind of slightly mystical element to it, that there is a suggestion that our heroine, who succumbs to faints and has a kind of connection with the Almighty, actually is in some kind of state of heightened spiritual awareness. And the film does a brilliant job of playing that off against these kind of very sort of gritty, tough elements. Great music by Terence Blanchard. I thought it was really well done. It's called Harriet, and I hope that it finds the audience that it deserves.